Set a task starting in January. Have a wedding in March. Panic. Build, paint, edit, everything in a week and a half. Sounds like a Battle Company's community challenge. Hello, I'm Dewi, and welcome to Guardians of Wiltshire. So this all started back in January, like I said. I got together with a merry bunch of Middle-earth content creators, both video and blog, to create a community challenge. That is the Battle Company Community Challenge. So this was where we were each going to be assigned a random Battle Company, and in that you would also be assigned random colours. So each participant put in 2 colours, and they could be as mean or as kind as they would like. From there, their names were drawn out of a hat, and they just had to get on and produce a battle company with those 2 colours being the main colours within their scheme. Joining me on this merry adventure are the YouTubers. We have Alex from Battle Camper, Damien from Battle Streams in Middle-earth, Benji from Benji's Hobbies, Dean from Dean Paints Things, Harry from Entmoot/Battle Games in Middle-earth, Cameron from Paints on a 4-Up, and Steve from Top Table Gaming. And on the blog front, we've got the Drawn Combat guys, which is Steve, Dan, Cole, and Dave. They've got the EAHC guys, which is CJ, Sam, and James. Rob from Over the Edge of the Wild, and finally, Ali from the GBHL Blog. So we'll jump in and see what colour and battle company I got.
Next one is Osgiliath in the colours of black and white for me.
So yes, I got Osgiliath, good battle company, with black and white, which is quite similar to their original scheme. And I wasn't going to do that. Pretty much all of my armies are painted in the traditional film or GW scheme, and I wanted to do something a little bit different and push myself on the modelling front and the painting front. So I jotted down a few ideas and got cracking. As you'll know, I love 3D printing, whether it be FDM or resin. However, my FDM isn't up to where I'd like it to be, so I'm going to try and do a bit more and see how I can get my print to come out. I started with this amazing ruin building from Dark Realms Arkenfell series. This is an excellent ruin, I think, for showcasing a battle company. However, I didn't want it to be enclosed, so I took a plane and I simply chopped the ground floor across, creating that nice, open, expansive looking into the ruin. I also knew that I wanted to have my bases fit into the piece and not just placed on top. I wanted them to really embed. So I created a cookie cutter using Fusion, which is much more in my ballpark, and inserted some magnet holes. Essentially this is going to be a dead space that will be cut out of the ruin. Importing this into Mesh Mixer, spit my words out, I positioned the cookie cutters where I wanted the bases to eventually be cut out. I only did it on the ground floor here, but it's the same process for the first floor. Now something much more in my ballpark. Shields, weapons, you name it, fusion. Louis van Hecker from Belgium, a good friend of mine, designed some SVG files for various shields, and I took a couple of items from a couple of those designs. I thought about the bridges of Osgiliath and the stars which the city is supposed to resemble. So I set about creating my custom shields for Osgiliath and created what you see here. I also knew that I have lots of broken stuff, so I needed some swords, and I already had some spears designed. So I got to work on those and printed them off. Once the resin prints were on their way, I switched back to my FDM printer. This is something that I have acquired in the last 9 months, I think, but I haven't used it extensively until now. So I set my printer up, set the print to go, and just watched it. I can't remember how long the print took, probably 12 to 16 hours. Once it came off, it was looking relatively nice, a few bits to touch up, and I've learnt my lesson that I need some more top layers. Whilst all of that was printing, I thought I might as well find the models I need to make my battle company. It was 2 spearmen, 2 swordsmen, and 2 rangers. Nice and simple. So I went to this bits box. I purchased this bunch of broken models a couple of months ago with the intent of 3D printing off weapons and shields and fixing them up. Luckily, in here was all the models I needed. Some were damaged, most were damaged, and I was going to change the shields anyway. So it was a case of clipping off the shields, fixing broken hands, and getting everyone in a place where they were ready for their 3D printed parts. Attaching the parts wasn't too difficult. A simple drill bit for the hands, and luckily and unluckily, whilst drilling through the hands, they kind of split about the thumb. So about here. This meant that I didn't have to cut the sword handles. It was a case of slotting them into the hands, gluing them in, and then I'll come back and green stuff them later. So here are the guys with their conversions finished. Before I could get started on the guys, I would need to have the terrain and display piece sorted so I knew which guys wanted to go where and what direction they'll be facing. I made sure that all my magnets were set in and ready to go. These were quite fundamental to making the whole piece look uniform when painting, etc. So I set about cleaning up my top layer problem. Not having enough top layers meant there were gaps between the filament and it didn't look great. So I set about it using some polyfiller and some sand and got in all the nooks and crannies and got the surface to a battlefield ready standard. I also, in my haste for printing off my spears, etc., broke a few of them. And I had some broken longbows that I printed off previously. So I got these along with some extra swords and shields and popped them on the base as like little scatter and as if it was a real base of where the battle company were. So once they were sorted, I simply went to the garage, I sprayed the ground with a black primer and then all the ruins with a white one. Spraying them like this meant that when I came back in, an easy wash over all the white was the base for my colour scheme. I wanted the walls of the ruins to be a bright white or relatively nice white to resemble Osgiliath. This was achieved by some real heavy dry brushing once the wash had gone down with just plain white, nothing different. It was 2 or 3 heavy dry brushes and the colour was pretty much exactly what I wanted. I'm not sure I would go any brighter. Once the white had been complete, the ground needed covering. So for this I simply mixed up some grey using some cheap acrylic paints and covered the base. I also did the stairs in a brown. I then set about using a homemade brown wash to get some more definition on the ground. Once this was done, I came in again with my white and kind of overbrushed it again, but because of the base layer wasn't so bright, it really didn't clash with the walls, which was what I thought it might do, but it came out in a really nice colour. Next, there was all the details that were on the base. So these were all the weapons that I said I put down, so the swords, the spears, the bows, the shields, they all needed to be picked out. I went with just standard colours on these, like you would expect. Silvers for spear tips and swords, black and cream for my shields, a bit of gold thrown in and a bit of brown for the wood textures. After that was done, case of getting on to the actual dudes. So, firstly I went back in and fixed the little thumb joint on pretty much all of them. It didn't take too long at all. There wasn't anything else I needed to green stuff, so this was simply a case of rolling a little sausage out and pushing it in with my sculpting tools. I started this with the idea of doing black armour. Now, I've never done black armour and I didn't quite know what I was doing. So I went on to YouTube, as you do, and looked through YouTubers who had done some black armour. And I came across a video by 52 Miniatures. In this, he discussed using black Templar contrast paint over a Zenithal Prime. So I thought, yeah, why not? Let's give it a crack. So I took my models back up to my hobby room and gave them a Zenithal Prime. Now, taking all the bits and pieces I needed downstairs, because I have a wife and a baby that I need to sit with sometimes, it was a case of trying the contrast paint. And I didn't like it. I didn't like how it came out. I didn't like the colour of it because it wasn't that black. And something wasn't right. And I have Liquitex black ink that I use relatively often. So I thought, why not, let's try that over the top. And over the top, it gave it a nice, shiny, deep black colour that I really, really liked. And from there, I was unsure about where to go, so I just picked up some Mechanica Standard Grey and did a little dry brush. And I was very, very pleasantly surprised by the results. Adding a little Dawnstone touch afterwards really made it pop, and I was quite content to leave it there. Deadlines were looming, and there was more of them to do. With my other main colour being white, there was only one place for it. Cloth. Yes, I know, painting white cloth, not a good idea. Actually, I didn't find it too bad. I've painted white cloth before, I've painted a couple of Gandalfs, and I find you just have to take your time and do a couple of layers. So I took this approach and wet blended very slightly, going from Dawnstone, Celestial Grey, and then White Scar. I did put a base of Celestial Grey under first, just to give it that basis, but with the Zenithal it wasn't needed necessarily. The rest was relatively easy. It's just as if I was painting up Warriors of Minas Tirith. I did the spear shafts brown, I had brown belts, that's the word, and other strapping was brown. The shields I painted exactly as if they were on the base of my display piece, and there wasn't much more to it. Eventually I was getting round to the face, and this is the only time I used washes really. The only washes I used was Reikland Flesh Shade and Nuln Oil. The Reikland Flesh Shade on the skin, and Nuln Oil was just around the connections in the weapons, so you're looking at the simple circle on the spearhead and just around the hilt of the sword. All in all, a nice, relatively basic paint scheme, and I think they've come out really well and they sit perfectly in the piece. The ranges were the last thing to do, and these I was tight for time, so here is a lovely time lapse of me painting my rangers. So that is my company done. It is all in place. It is all complete. I started editing this on Tuesday. Fingers crossed it goes out on Saturday. I'm going to say it will. So, thank you to all the people who participated. Over the next coming days and week, you will see the rest of the Battle Company Community Challenge, and there are some good colour schemes. So, go and check out everyone else's content. I will be. There'll be a playlist in the description below. So please comment, like, subscribe. Go check out everyone else's. And here is my finished Osgiliath Battle Company.